Hi everyone, my name's Emma, this is Emma Rosen Books, and it's so close to the release day for my book Milk, which I've been talking about now for 6 months on this channel. And yeah, tomorrow's the day. So I announced earlier in the week that I'd be doing a Q&A to celebrate the book coming out and give you guys a little bit more information about it. Of course, links to buy the book are below. It's available on all good booksellers. If you want a signed copy, then those are on my website. If you want a signed copy and you don't live in the UK, just send me an email and I can work out postage costs. So yeah, but all the links are below if you would like to find out more. So I've got some questions on various different platforms. My links are below to all my various social media accounts. So let's see, where shall we start? Okay, so on YouTube, the first questions are from Caught Between Pages. Vendi from Caught Between Pages did the most lovely review of the book. I'll link that below actually, but oh, it's so nice. So check it out, and Vendi, thank you so much. It meant the world to me. So yeah, anyway, so the questions from Vendi. What was the easiest part of writing Milk and the hardest? The easiest part, I suppose, in a way, because it was memoir, or part of my book is memoir, alternates between non-fiction and autobiography. And when I was writing about my own experiences, obviously that's kind of easy because you're just tapping away and I don't have to think about what a character is going to do or something. I'm just writing about what happened. So in that respect, it is just a case of kind of recalling the events and writing it in a entertaining way. The hardest, though, in a way, would be the same kind of thing, that when I was writing about things that were difficult at the time, it was hard to write it because it was emotional. But then on the other hand, it was very cathartic to write those things, and it helped me to work through how I felt. So when I was writing about my son's birth, for example, which unfortunately didn't go as I would have liked it to have gone, and I found it very difficult to cope with, you know, it was really hard to recall those times, but writing it and editing it now means that I can think about it and talk about it and it doesn't upset me at all. And actually I would recommend, if you've been through anything that you find really hard, it really worked for me to sit and write what happened. You know, hard but helpful. Vendi's next question, did you face any hiccups or setbacks after the writing was done with the self-publishing process? I talk about this a little bit on my video tomorrow, which is a like self-publishing steps. One of the hiccups that I faced was that I didn't realise that Kindle Unlimited was a exclusivity thing. I didn't really read the terms and conditions and I just kind of misunderstood. So I signed up my ebook to Kindle Unlimited without realising that that meant I couldn't distribute it anywhere else. And I got really panicked about it, but then when I thought about it, I was okay with it because I did want to use the Kindle Unlimited service, but then I also wanted to have wide distribution. Sorry, the dog is snoring. I'm sorry if you can hear that. So I'm fine with the decision, but if I'd realised before I signed up to it, then I would have researched it more and kind of come to a conclusion rather than being forced down the route of, oh well, I've signed up to Kindle Unlimited now so it's too late. And frustratingly, if you signed up to Kindle Unlimited during your pre-order phase, you can't cancel it. You can cancel it if you signed up to it once your book's out. You've got, I think it's 3 days to cancel it. But during the pre-order phase, because technically it hasn't kicked in yet until the book's actually out, because people can't use Kindle Unlimited until the book's out, you can't cancel it because you're not signed up to it, but you are signed up to it. So you end up in this weird loophole. So that was really annoying. I may still have made the same decision, but it kind of took the decision away from me, if you see what I mean. I mean, it was just you know, it's completely my mistake. So yeah, that was kind of a hiccup, but it's fine. And as I say, I might go to wide distribution when my 90-day contract is up, or I might not. I'll see how the figures look. I don't know. Any updates on what you're writing next? Well, I had a meeting with a lady last week, I think, because the next project I want to work on is a children's picture book. Reason being, Milk was such a hard write. It was emotionally difficult. There was a lot of research went into it. It was, obviously it's the first time I've published a book, so it was just very intense. I feel like I want something lighter. I have an idea for a series of children's picture books that I've had for a few years, and I just think it would be a really fun next project, whilst at the same time I'm also going to be writing a fiction book. So the children's picture book, so I met up with this lady because she is hopefully going to be illustrating the book for me, which is brilliant. Her artwork is amazing, but I'll say more once, you know, everything's all sorted and agreed and on the road and all of that. But yeah, I want to write a children's book which is based around the idea of teaching children about the science of sea creatures, but in a just through storytelling, because my first degree is in marine biology and I love the sea, as I've said on here before. So that's the idea for that. And then, as I say, at the same time, and like while the artwork's going through and all of that, I'm going to be writing a fiction book which is based around the idea of sort of falling in love with or discovering yourself, and kind of getting motivation through that's the story of somebody who feels very disconnected, then kind of changing that. And I'm very strong on the idea that I don't want that to be a story of somebody who, you know, they fall in love and then they find their identity through whoever they've fallen in love with. I want it to be about this person kind of finding out who they are. So that's the idea of that, and I'm sort of just plotting that out at the moment. So those will be the next two projects, I believe, if all goes well. So thank you for those questions, Wendy. Those are really good. The next questions are from Ale McKinley, who, hang on, when is this video going up? This video is going up, today. So yesterday, Ale announced releasing her book, which is called Infrarouge Edge, and she has the same cover designers that I do, and the book looks incredible. So please check that out and check her channel out. I'll link her below. But yeah, she's just released her self-published book, so that's very exciting. So her questions: what was the catalyst that made you decide to write or publish Milk? Well, as I already said, things were difficult with my son. It wasn't just birth, it was breastfeeding him in the early days, and I found it really hard. And I was surprised to find it hard, because I was really prepared, and I tend to be the kind of person, I'm quite sort of, I don't want to use the word strong, I'm kind of quite resilient, that's the word I want. And if I've prepared for something, I tend to be ready for it. And so it really surprised me that I found it as hard as I did. And you know, there's lots and lots of reasons for that I went through in the book, but what frustrated me is that when everything I'd heard about breastfeeding or being taught about breastfeeding, it always just seemed so perfect. And I wanted to write something where I told a warts and all story, you know, where I said that it can be hard, and sometimes people struggle, and that's okay. And that's not about you saying, oh well, I'm not doing this well, or I'm a bad mother, or any of that. It's about kind of finding your people to hold you up when you're struggling to hold yourself up, and to tell you their experiences and share how they feel. So that was the point of the book. I just wanted to kind of tell a true story. I think it's important to have real stories out there, not just the facts and figures and the idealised image, but that it's okay, you know, if you're struggling, you're not the only person to have ever struggled, and that doesn't mean that it's the end of the road, unless you want it to be the end of the road, you know. It's just, I just am all for people feeling supported in whatever it is that they want to do. And yeah, that was the point. Anyway, I could ramble about this for forever. So that was why I decided to write it, and then once I'd written it, it took me 5 or 6 years to fully write it, because I was writing at the same time as I was living it. And after spending all of that time and so many kind of tired nights sitting up writing, couldn't not publish it. There just wasn't any other choice. It didn't matter if I never sold a copy of this book, I just had to see the journey through. What was your publishing process like? Good, actually, really, really enjoyable. I felt like I researched it really well, so I knew everything I had to do. There are so many amazing author tubers and bloggers and everybody out there. I found so many good sources of information, and I think I planned it well and carried it out well and stayed motivated so that everything kind of happened. I was very good at kind of going, okay, this evening I need to do this, that and the other. I use a bullet journal, that really helps me. If anybody would like me to explain how I use a bullet journal, I don't have like one of these really beautiful ones, but I use the method, and I find that really helpful. So it was good, but what I would like to say about that is that I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the publishing process. I thought I was the writer, and that the publishing process was like I was the creative. It turns out I love business. I never knew I loved business. I've never been particularly interested, I think, but then it being my own business suddenly makes me interested in it. And I'm really interested in how to create the best product that I can, and how to manage my business the best way that I can, and how to promote it and work with other people, and marketing and growing my business, and just all of that stuff. And I'm obviously only just starting out with all of that, but I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed learning about it. So yeah, actually really surprisingly good. Did you expect it to be a breeze, or was it more difficult than anticipated? I think it was easier than I'd anticipated, because I'd put the research in. I think I just thought that each step was going to be a lot harder than it was, and there were difficulties. It wasn't all plain sailing. I did run into problems. I think I just thought that it would be more complex, or that when I actually sat down to do each step, so when I sat down to upload my files, I thought it would take forever, and it didn't. And when I looked up each thing, when I incorporated my company, and when and I think what makes all of that manageable is the fact that the information is out there. So if I was stuck on anything, I could Google it, and I could find somebody who'd done it before, found the same issues before. So I didn't expect it. I expected it to be more difficult than it was, I think. It wasn't easy, but it was easier than I thought it would be, I think. So thank you for those questions anyway, Ale. Those are brilliant, and I'll make sure to link Ale below, of course. And then I have some questions from Snow White and the Seven Shells, who is a brilliant booktuber. She's so funny, and obviously I'm going to link her too. So her questions: when did you know you wanted to write about breastfeeding? I've kind of already said that, it was, I've always wanted to be a writer, always, and I would start to write a story and it would be lame. It would always be like overly romanticised, and I'd never have a plot. I'd just start writing something from some kind of vision I had, and then I'd get to the end of that scene and just be like, well, that's it then. So I never got anywhere, and it was just the fact that after I had my son, I just sat there one night and just thought, why does this book not exist? So because I felt so passionately about that, I wrote the book that I wanted to exist. Were there any books that inspired you to write your own? Absolutely, I've talked about it before. The Politics of Breastfeeding was very instrumental in me starting to write this. When I had been struggling with my son, basically, when I managed to kind of turn things around, and breastfeeding was going a lot easier, and I was feeling a lot better in my mind, and my health was better, and everything was kind of on the up, I wanted to learn more about breastfeeding because I'd been so interested in it, but I didn't want to read something like the Positive Breastfeeding book or the Womanly Art of Breastfeeding or something like that, because I didn't want to read a how-to kind of book or an ages and stages kind of book. I wanted to read about the subject, the science of it. And so I was looking online, breastfeeding books, and stumbled across this, and thought it sounded interesting, it had good reviews, and I can remember sitting there in my rocking chair feeding my son, reading this, and being absolutely dumbfounded at the things that I was reading. I was so shocked, and it helped me to understand what I'd been through, because I understood why society was the way it was, which is why my book has a subtitle it does, A Story of Breastfeeding in a Society That's Forgotten How, because as soon as I understood the fact that we weren't getting this transmission of information through the generations, because my parents' generation barely breastfed their children, and because the sort of information about breastfeeding had been so impacted particularly by heavy use of formula, because formula was just so commonplace, everybody used it pretty much, that I kind of understood what happened, and so that made me even more, it really inspired me to want to write about that idea, of what it is like feeding in this society. It's not this, oh well, you just do it and everything's perfect. It's challenging because people don't understand it, and people make odd comments, and you can feel very, very isolated breastfeeding a baby in the society I live in. So yeah, that was why. So this book, which I would have read when my son was about 2-3 months old, I don't know whether I'd finished it when I started writing my book or whether I was still reading it, but it was pretty much about the same time. So this book was very instrumental in me starting to write Milk. I think those are all the questions I have on YouTube. Yeah, so thanks for those, guys. So then on to Facebook, I think is where I had all of my other questions. Obviously, if you'd like to come and follow me on Facebook, then you can do. All of my social media is Emma Rosen Books on various channels. So, questions on Facebook. I've got some questions from Ruth Tazy. So she says, who was your breastfeeding inspiration? I didn't have like a, you know, some person who was like a breastfeeding goddess that I looked up to. Probably the best person would be a lady who in my book is called Ruth. Everybody except my immediate family has fake names, so me and my husband, my children's names are all our actual names. Everybody else I changed because I thought I'd make it a blanket thing, although a couple of people said to me, oh no, I'm okay, you can use my name. I thought it was just better to make everybody the same. Anyway, so it's the lady who's called Ruth in my book. She ran the breastfeeding support group that I'm now involved in, and she, when I was pregnant with my son, ran an antenatal breastfeeding day, and I didn't understand how a whole day could be spent on it, but I learned so much. She went through lots of how to feed a baby, how to express for a baby, different holds, how to, things like how often they might feed and troubleshooting, and but she did also even talk a little bit, a tiny bit about the politics then, which kind of piqued my interest. So she, in many ways, would have been the person who inspired me to breastfeed. I would have done it anyway, but she was very instrumental in my passion for breastfeeding, I suppose you could say. So yeah. What did you do or think the first time you saw breastfeeding as an adult? I talk about this in my book. A friend of mine breastfed her son. It's the only person I knew really before I'd had a baby, and I can remember seeing her keep feeding him. Like every time he cried, she kept feeding him, and I was like, why is she constantly feeding this baby? Like, how can he be hungry again? And she's making a rod for her own back, keep feeding him, because he's just going to keep asking, because she just keeps giving him. Like, she needs to make him last a bit longer. This is ridiculous. She's just going to be feeding him all the time. And I can remember saying all this to my husband. And then I had a baby and discovered that's how breastfeeding works. Is it's a kind of feed on demand, and the best way it works is when you don't even think about it. But I didn't recognise it as normal because I'd never been exposed to it before. So yeah, I do talk about that event in my book. But yeah, I wasn't bothered by seeing it. I'm not particularly bothered about like nudity or seeing my friend's breasts or anything like that. Like, that didn't bother me, but it was the fact that she was feeding him all the time. But it wasn't all the time. It was very normal. Because we were on a day out, and so I don't even know how often he was feeding. I just remember that I was shocked by it. So yeah. Then I have some questions from Emily Jane Reeves, and she says, are you proud of my breastfeeding achievements? Yeah, I am. And so the World Health Organization recommends that you breastfeed for exclusively for 6 months, and then continue to breastfeed for 2 years and beyond. And my first child I breastfed for about 15 months, my second for I think it's like 18, 19 months. My third child is currently 16 months and still feeding. But I can kind of feel that we're starting to reach the end. I would have loved to have been somebody who has fed for 2 years. I still might with my third. So I think it was just that. But of course the 2 years thing is not like some goal to be reached. And I stopped breastfeeding because it wasn't right for our relationship, which, that's what I'm talking about when I say that it's anybody's right to stop breastfeeding when they want to, whatever time, it is about your relationship with your child and your family. But yeah, there was that part of me that was just kind of, I wished I'd made 2 years and I never did. But aside from that, there was a time with my eldest when I didn't think, I'd set my mind to 6 months and didn't think I'd go a day beyond that, and I thought 6 months would be a struggle. So yeah, I am proud. Have you got a favourite scientific fact about breastfeeding? Yeah, okay. This one I was a biology teacher. This scientific fact to me sounds like absolute voodoo. I don't see how, well, I do understand how it works, but it's just weird that supposedly when a baby feeds, their saliva making contact with you, the signals from that saliva, like your body can sense the chemical composition of that and then produce milk tailored to the baby. Supposedly that's a thing, and that just seems insane to me. I haven't really seen that much about it, but supposedly that is a thing that happens. How does that work? Like how? Yeah, so I like that one, just because it's really weird, I guess. Okay, next person. Oh, back to Ruth, who is not the Ruth mentioned in the book. Like I said, her name is fake. Would you have liked to have fed any of your children for longer? Why did you stop? Well, as I said, yeah, I did want to. With my eldest, I stopped because he was only feeding once a day. He was kind of, every time I tried to feed him, he was mucking me about and just kind of crawling all over the place and annoying me. And I felt like I was having to fight to keep him feeding, so I just thought, what's the point in this? And I stopped offering to feed him, and he never asked again. With my middle child, I have suffered with each of my children with something called breastfeeding aversion, which means that when I feed, I sometimes, particularly it's hormonally linked, I feel very frustrated, and it's a bit like maybe like running your fingers down a blackboard. It's that kind of, it just gets to me. My youngest at the moment pinches me at the same time as well, and it makes me crazy. And it's that, I just want to go, get it off of me, but I know that is a hormonal thing, and it's got nothing to do with how I feel about breastfeeding or anything. It is just a thing that I personally struggle with. It's not all of the time as well, so when I do feel it, I kind of just have to think, okay, I know that this is just right now. It can be worse if I'm feeling really run down and really tired. Anyway, with my middle child, it got to a point where I just couldn't tolerate it anymore. I found it too hard with that, particularly again getting into the phase where she was just crawling all over me and I couldn't bear it. So that's kind of why I stopped. She would have wanted to feed a bit longer, but I couldn't do it anymore. And that's the thing, that was my decision. It's a two-way relationship, and I'm totally happy with having done that. Absolutely each to their own, and if you have a reason to stop, you as the mother have every right to stop as much as the child. So yeah, that's why I stopped with her. And then my third is, obviously I'm now in the aversion territory, so I'm trying to stick in there. We'll see. Then I have some questions from Francesca Tang. What made you decide to write this book? I think I've already answered that. So son was 3 months old, it had all been really difficult. I wanted to write a book about it. Where is the strangest place you have breastfed? Okay, probably one of the weirdest would have been that when I graduated from my master's degree, I needed to feed the baby up before the ceremony, because this was my second child, May. She was like a few months old. She would have been 5 months old. And so I wanted to kind of get her fed so that my mother-in-law could go and take her off while I went to the ceremony. And so I was sat outside, so I graduated at Canterbury Cathedral for that degree. And so I was sat in Canterbury Cathedral in my full-on graduation robes, feeding the baby, which was kind of cool. But other than that, it's just like around and about wherever I am. So, shops, parks, places, I don't know, wherever I've been, but yeah, that one kind of stuck out. And finally, if you could pick one breastfeeding magic power, what would it be? For example, sleep when the children are hurt, etc. The thing that I think is like a magic breastfeeding power is that it generally instantly quiets the child. So you've got a crying child, feed it, it stops crying. That is like the best magic power that breastfeeding has. yeah, I like that one. It's a mute button. It's been very helpful over the years. You know, you're out in public, baby's crying, and it's all, oh, you feel anxious, feed the baby, silent baby. So yeah, I like that one. Thanks everybody for really awesome questions, and I hope that, you know, that's answered some questions about the book for you guys. And yeah, please like if you did, leave me comments if you'd like to, and please subscribe if you would like to see more videos about writing and about reading. There will be more on reading as once the book is out, but obviously at the moment my focus is the launch of this lovely book. So yeah, I will see you all tomorrow for my video about the sort of timeline of publishing Milk, and obviously tomorrow is release day, so if you'd like to order a copy, as I said, links are below. Anyway, thank you all, and I'll see you all tomorrow for my next video. Bye!